Hi, welcome to our discussion on precipitation rate, looking at point measurements, and specifically we're looking at rainfall measurements. And we're working our way through the different types of gauges. We already talked about accumulation gauges. Right now we're going to discuss recording gauges. We already talked about one type of recording gauge in another video, and that was the tipping bucket. In this one, we're going to be looking at weighing rain gauges. So weighing rain gauges use the weight of the water to produce a output that determines the depth of precipitation, the amount of water that fell. So it can it can figure out over a period of time if you have some sort of clock to time the weight of the water over a period of time, and that can be converted into the depth of rainfall. The weighing rain gauge uses some sort of mechanical mechanism to measure the weight of the water. In some weighing rain gauges, it is a spring. In others, it's a pressure transducer. And that weight is converted to an electrical signal, typically. Sometimes it may be just, it may not be an electrical signal. It may be just some linkage that is driving a pointer which has perhaps maybe ink on it, and it can draw the trace of precipitation over a period of time on a clock wound chart drum. But the precipitation nonetheless goes through or falls into a funnel, which is funneled into a bucket, and then it's weighed from there. The output, as I mentioned, could be a pen trace on a strip chart, but also there are other types of mechanisms for recording the precipitation. You might have voltage from a potentiometer. Ones that are more popular, you'll see with the National Weather Service, they used a punched paper tape, believe it or not. But there are other electronic means such as data loggers or things like that. The weighing rain gauges are, of course, continuously measuring precipitation as it falls, so you get a continuous output of both the rainfall rate, because if there is a timer, if there is a clock, it can measure the amount of precipitation change over a period of time, and also it can measure the actual weight based on the actual depth based on the weight of precipitation in the bucket. There are three different types of weighing rain gauges that are currently being used: the universal, the Fisher-Porter, and then finally the AWPAG, or also it's called the OTT. The universal is used by the National Weather Service's Cooperative Observer Program, and this is one of the older ones. It looks kind of like a milk can, your old milk cans, but it uses, of course, a bucket and a spring to measure the weight of water in the bucket. It has a clock that's driven. It's a 24-hour clock that has an ink pen that traces the amount of precipitation on a rotating drum on a piece of paper, on a chart actually. And it is used by, of course, volunteer weather observers all across the United States. The chart has to be changed typically whenever there is a rainfall event, or once a week, or the first day of the month, depending upon the schedule that the Weather Service asks you. Its resolution is to the nearest 5/100ths of an inch of precipitation and has a capacity of 12 inches. Those are being replaced by the Fisher-Porter. The Fisher-Porter is a electrically driven weighing rain gauge. It uses either battery power, or I have also seen solar panels that supply the electrical power for these types of systems. They also record the information instead of using a pen and ink and a recording drum. Instead, they use a punch tape, similar to the very old programming methods for writing computer programs back in the 1960s and 1970s, believe it or not. The recorder punches a hole every 15 minutes whenever there is precipitation, a certain amount, and that can be decoded when the information is sent off to the National Weather Service. And this tape runs for a month, so you don't really need to go out there every day or anytime there's a precipitation event. You just go out there and swap out the punch tape every month. And this is what one looks like. You can see the clock with the punch tape right there. Also, this is the actual weighing bucket right there with a shaft that goes into a pressure transducer. So it's actually somewhat technical type device. The resolution on the Fish Reporter is 1/10 of an inch, and it has a capacity over a month to collect up to close to 20 inches, 19.5 inches of precipitation. That tape, after a month, it's punched holes on it and is sent to the National Weather Service, a local weather forecast office, and from there they'll look at it. They'll do quality assurance and then send it off to the National Centers for Environmental Information, which is located in Asheville, North Carolina. And that is recorded and archived for a period of time. So that's a little bit about two basic types of weighing gauges. In our next video, we're going to talk about the AWPAG.